All right, everyone. My name is Kimberly Flores. I am a board certified nurse practitioner and certified nutritionist, CEO of Sophrosony Health. Today, we are going to go over a very brief synopsis of what it looks like to have a Dutch test done, whether you are a current client, prospective client, or wanting to do this on a consultation basis. This is now a service that we do provide within Sophrosony Health. So to start off, just want to do a quick disclaimer that all of this information is to be used for educational purposes only, not to be used to diagnose or treat any sort of disorder. Please talk to your primary care provider prior to initiating any changes. Now, let's dive into this. For HIPAA purposes, again, I'm not going to mention the patient's name, any of her personal information, but this was a 47-year-old female that came to us with symptoms of hair loss, decreased libido, vaginal dryness, breast tenderness, mood swings, and night sweats. Now, she was a relatively healthy female overall. She's not overweight by any means, but was feeling very stressed out, burnt out. She is a nurse manager, so she did survive COVID and all of the stressors that came with that. She really wanted to get to the root cause of what her symptoms were and if there was anything she could do about it. So that's where the Dutch test comes in. We were already working on optimizing nutrition, workout routines, etc., but we wanted to ensure that there weren't any other hormonal issues going on that we could in fact manipulate. So diving right into this first page, what you're going to see is over here, and it kind of got messed up when I uploaded this to Canva, but you can see this is like a template for patient results. Anything in this purple part right here at the very bottom of the dial is going to be something in the postmenopausal range, and then between these stars is what you'll have your normal ranges. So you can see right off the bat with her sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, all of them are on the low end, like below low end of normal, like below, like almost postmenopausal ranges. Now, I do want to note she is perimenopausal, so this isn't too surprising. But my concern was, especially for her progesterone, she's already in the postmenopausal ranges and she's still having periods. So her progesterone shouldn't be that low. Her testosterone shouldn't be that low if she's not quite postmenopausal yet. So this was a little bit of a red flag for me. This shows me that something is starting to decline somewhere. Now, going down to adrenal hormones, because these are the main two parts that we look at. We look at sex hormones, which is the estrogen, the progesterone, and the testosterone, and then we look at adrenal hormones, which is going to be all the cortisol, cortisone, how it's metabolized, things of that sort. Now, one of her complaints was that she was really fatigued waking up in the morning, and you can see her patient values, she's actually right in between the normal ranges. She's not too high, she's not too low. But what I would like to see, which could be contributing to her severe morning fatigue, is that this spike is not that high. I would like to see it go up and peak a little bit more, a little bit higher. And this could be why she's not feeling as energized in the morning. It shouldn't take 2-3 hours for you to feel like you're finally just waking up, right? But overall, it is within normal ranges. But here's the caveat. If you come over here, you could see, okay, her free cortisol is within normal ranges, but her metabolized cortisol is on the very low end of normal. So you can have cortisol floating around, but until it's fully metabolized and utilized, that's probably, again, what's contributing to her feeling tired, because you can have all the cortisol, but if it's not being metabolized and used by your body, well, then you're gonna feel those symptoms, and without cortisol, you're gonna be tired, right? So moving on, and again, this is just a very abbreviated synopsis to kind of give you guys a feel of what it looks like to have a Dutch test with us. This second page is majority of everything we see on the first page. It does break down a little bit more into the different types of estrogen, the estrogen pathways, which we're going to see on the next page. So I'm going to move on to the next page. Okay, so this is a very important page. There it goes, it's loaded. First and foremost, we look at the DHEA sulfate, which again, on the low end of normal. And here's one of my problems that I have with a typical doctor's office. When they test something in your blood and it's within normal ranges, they'll say, okay, that's fine, that's normal, not anything to worry about. But we have to take the whole patient, the whole client into perspective when looking at these ranges. Is this range her normal? Now, first time doing a Dutch test, we can't really say what's her normal values and what's not. But what I can say is, with seeing that she has a low testosterone, a low estrogen level, and a low progesterone, and her DHEA sulfate is on the low end, I'm starting to cue in thinking, okay, what's going on with her adrenal glands? And the problem with this is, as you go into postmenopause, no more periods, your ovaries are no longer producing your estrogen, your adrenals need to be functioning. And when you aren't pushing out, you don't have adequate DHEA, that's a sign to me that maybe your adrenals are either taxed, stressed, or just not functioning properly. And this is going to affect her. She's going to have more symptoms going through perimenopause if she does not have adequate levels of DHEA sulfate to help promote the production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, because DHEA sulfate is the precursor to all of those sex hormones. If you don't have enough DHEA sulfate, you're not going to be able to maximize the potential of how much you can actually produce in your body. So again, looking at the progesterone levels, she's already in the postmenopausal ranges. This could be tying into her low libido, why she's so tired all the time, but doesn't quite make sense because she's still having periods. Her progesterone levels shouldn't be this low quite yet. Now, again, Canva, you're killing me. These letters are a little bit messed up, but it says androsterone. We also look at the activity, the pathways in which you are more prone to break down certain things. So you can see, I love the visuals on the Dutch test. So you have the DHEA sulfate, and then it gets broken down into androstenedione. Girl, that is a tongue twister. And then we can see from there, what is she more based towards? Is she more an alpha preference or a beta preference? She has more beta preference, which basically tells us she may not be having so much of those androgenic symptoms like acne and body hair growth in places where you shouldn't be growing body hair. Now, moving on to the estrogen. We produce 3 different types of estrogen. You have estrone, estradiol, and estriol, E1, E2, E3. Whichever one is most prominent depends on your phase of life, whether you're in your 20s and 30s having normal periods, whether you're going through childbearing, whether you're going through postmenopause. Estriol E3 is the one that primarily you're going to be using when you are postmenopausal. And you can see all 3 of hers are in the tank. And that's okay. We're going to break this down. It doesn't mean that everything is doom and gloom and that like she's doomed to never feel good. It's just, this is what our test results are saying. So when we're looking at, you can see 3 different pathways. You can see the green, the red, and the blue, and they're color coded for those specific reasons. The 4-OH pathway or 2-OH pathway, the green one, green is usually a good sign, right? This is the one that we want to see adequate levels on, and you can see her green pathway is the majority of how she's metabolizing her, methylating her estrogen. The 4-OH pathway, which is in red, is the bad one. This is the one that, if it is too high, has been known to cause DNA damage. So this is not one we want to see in high amounts. And then you have this blue pathway, which is the estriol methylation. Hers, again, is on the low end of normal. Fun fact, if you want to improve your methylation of estriol, you can increase your vitamin D intake. Sometimes this methylation pathway is on the low end, and it's because there is, in fact, a vitamin D deficiency. And again, going back to, okay, you can draw your vitamin D levels in your labs and say it's in normal ranges, but what is normal ranges for you? So for me personally, I think my last vitamin D results were somewhere in the 40s range, but I still continue to supplement with 5,000 international units daily because I know that for me personally, I function better when my vitamin D levels are closer to the 60s, 70s. And that's going to usually be on an individual basis. So that's just a fun fact on the blue pathway. And then going back to the green pathway, we can see again, how are you methylating? What are you leaning more towards? Again, I'm going to keep this abbreviated because I know I'm going to lose a lot of you in the technicalities of all this, but I wanted to kind of break down and see, okay, this is all the information that you are in fact going to get when you have the Dutch test. Again, this is another one that's pretty much giving us, for the most part, everything that we're seeing in the above and below pages. So I'm going to skip through this, wait for this to load. Now, this page is on the adrenal gland, pituitary, HPA axis. You can see her melatonin levels are pretty decent. So for her, if she's supplementing with melatonin, great. If she's not, I wouldn't necessarily say that she needs to add that on. A lot of people, when we think of melatonin, we think of it helps us sleep, right? Which it does. And that's why we say put your screens away an hour before bedtime, because when you are looking at blue light, it blocks your brain. It thinks your brain artificially thinks that the blue screens are sunlight. But when you take that away at night, your brain will start to naturally produce melatonin, and that's what helps you to get to sleep. And so melatonin is one of those supplements we take to help us sleep. But the other part of that is melatonin is a very, very powerful antioxidant. So if that's something that I see a deficiency in, we're definitely going to want to supplement with that. And this is a fun fact that I just recently learned, that there's multiple studies proving this, is that I always thought that if we supplemented with melatonin over time, our pituitary would just kind of shut off, because it's one of those things where if we keep supplementing, the part of the body that produces it kind of slacks off because it sees that we're just giving it to our own body. That's not the case. Even if we supplement with melatonin every day, our body will still be able to produce it naturally. It's just kind of giving it that extra push. So there is nothing wrong with supplementing with melatonin, although again, take caution before starting any new supplement. I am by no means recommending you go start a supplement. This is something where you would want to talk to your healthcare provider, or if you are working with us at Sophrosity Health, that's a conversation that we would need to have. But I just thought that was a fun fact about melatonin. Now, going back to DHEA sulfate, which we saw in a previous page, she is on the very low end of normal, so she is 100% a great candidate for taking a small dose of DHEA sulfate, which has been proven to be perfectly safe, supplementing up to 2 years. The problem I have with DHEA sulfate, and this is something that goes into a lot of other supplements as well, is I've seen for DHEA sulfate, specifically, I've seen bottles where one tablet is like 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, and usually you don't need to supplement with that much. I'm recommending 5-10 milligrams tops per day of DHEA for my patients and for myself. So when I see these supplements out there that's starting at 50 milligrams, even 25 milligrams, like, unless you've specifically been told by a doctor that's how much your daily dose needs to be, it's not necessary to take that much. More is not always better. And that's why you have to take huge caution before starting any supplement. First, knowing where that supplement comes from. Is it a reputable brand? Are there any sort of toxic additives, chemicals, preservatives in them before just blindly starting something? So that's with the DHEA sulfate, which we know that she is going to need that support. Again, recapping, some of these things are overlap, but it just kind of shows the visual breakdown of how and why. We know that her metabolized cortisol is on the low level. And this goes back to stress, right? She's got a very high stress job, and it has gotten to the point, and I see this so much in like every nurse I come into contact with, especially since COVID has happened. It's just put everyone in a very, very stressful position. Not that working in healthcare wasn't stressful before, and this isn't just to healthcare workers. It's for any sort of field of work that is high stress. But you can only be in fight or flight for so long. You can only be pushing out elevated levels of cortisol for so long before your adrenals start to get tired. And I hate this term adrenal burnout, because I mean, it's not necessarily like, I know there's a lot of holistic people out there that are over exaggerating the concept. Our bodies are very smart and very resourceful, and they are resilient when you do in fact support your body. So if this is a case where she's not producing the amount of cortisol that she needs to produce, it can get better with very small tweaks. She doesn't need to be on a prescription at this point. There's a lot of things we can do with her lifestyle to support that, so we can normalize the metabolized cortisol. Is her plan. I'm going to quickly run through this for all of you. First and foremost, stress management. And if you go to the doctor's office, I'm sure they always tell you that. Stress management, you need to work on relaxing. What happens when someone tells you to relax? Do you relax? No, you definitely don't. You think about it, but it's easier said than done, right? So this is the beauty that comes into working with a coach when we're walking through this testing process, because you can have that one-on-one accountability to really get down into the nitty-gritty of daily life and say, what does that actually look like to manage my stress on an individual level? So I know I made some recommendations and I don't know if I wrote them in here, but okay, so if you just think to yourself, what are some things that you can think of for stress management? Meditation, going for a walk, being outdoors, calling a friend, all these things. But when it comes to the individual, what's going to work for you individually? And so this was something that she prioritized while working with Coach Tesla. This is not a personal client of mine, but with Coach Tesla, go Tesla, whoop, whoop. And the second part was a further workup. Now, the Dutch hormone test is not the end all be all. It's a complement usually to other things. And based on this person's results, I wanted to do additional lab testing. So the recommendations that I made were for CBC, A1C, fasting insulin, lipid panel, sex hormone binding globulin, that's what that word is right there, thyroid panel, not just a TSH. A TSH a lot of times does not give us enough information. I wanted to test her zinc levels, ferritin, and her serum testosterone. So we want to go back and double check, especially when it comes to testosterone. If the urine levels are low, we always want to compare that to the blood. So especially for testosterone, the serum levels of testosterone is gold standard. So the hormone test, or the Dutch hormone test, will be used as a complement to comparing this with the labs as well. For low adrenal input, again, oh my goodness, guys, I copy and pasted this twice. These are doubles, so I'm going to walk through that. I was like, wow, that looks long. For her, she was having some vaginal dryness. We did recommend some vaginal creams. This is something that she would have to go to her doctor to get prescribed. This is a temporary thing that she could do. And yeah, that was just a recommendation. These are all recommendations. It's not something that she had to do. For supplementation, this is the big one. So DHEA sulfate, we were doing 10 milligrams. Rhodiola and ashwagandha, those are the two biggest ones that supports normalizing cortisol levels and not decreasing stress, because it's not quite as simple as that, but these herbs that we are aware of help to increase our capacity to handle stress. So it's not a matter of when you take these supplements like, oh, I'm less stressed. It's a matter of you're going to have the same stressors coming at you all the time, but you're not getting so overwhelmed and bogged down by it. You're able to take the punches as they come, so to speak. I'm trying to get philosophical about this, but I'm hoping you guys are understanding what I'm trying to say. And then the last one that I was going to recommend is the magnesium glycinate. That is going to help support methylation, help with her sleep. That's a great supplement if you guys are struggling to get to sleep. Melatonin and magnesium glycinate, they're power duo, I tell you. And supporting her nervous system, which again goes back into stress management. And then with her workouts, so I don't know if I mentioned this, but she was previously CrossFitter. So she was all about those really high intensity workouts. She was going, I think, 4 to 5 days a week. We have tweaked her workout, so she's only going 3 to 4 times a week and no more than 1 hour, no HIIT exercises, utilizing weights, but nothing like super high intensity. And then I also gave her some optional things, licorice root tea. There are licorice root supplements out there as well if you don't like the licorice root tea, because if you're like me, licorice tastes disgusting to me. But that does help with fatigue. So drinking something like that in the morning can be super beneficial. Acupuncture for stress improvement. And then of course you have to throw in that nutritional component. I also recommended optimizing choline in her diet. So that would consist of consuming more egg yolks, sunflower, salmon, red meat, shiitake mushrooms, soy, almonds, red potatoes, quinoa, and cottage cheese. Now, You guys get to fast forward ahead and see her progress. This is the client here. You can see just by the pictures that there's been a huge change in her body composition. But that's not even the main point. Our main goal here was for her to improve her energy, which she has achieved. And in the process of this, she has had this impressive body recomposition just because she started doing workouts that best supported her lifestyle and really working on that stress management component. Her husband is starting to notice that her body is changing, and honestly, I don't know off the top of my head how much she's lost. Even if it's 5 or 10 pounds, it's more of the composition, because now she's more capable of increasing her muscle mass, which tells me that by taking the DHA sulfate, she's probably naturally starting to increase her testosterone levels. And she's less stressed. She's able to go to work. She's able to take the punches, if you will, and not feel so incredibly burnt out by the end of each and every day. So this is what Dutch testing looks like. This is how we do it for clients, again, or on a consultation basis. You don't have to be a client to get the Dutch testing. If this is something that you are interested in, there's a couple of different ways. You can contact me directly through email. That's Kimberly at Sofrosiny Health Coaching. That's SOPHROSYNE healthcoaching.com, or you can go to our website, sofrosinyhealthcoaching.com. If you are in our Facebook group, you can contact me or Tesla, reach out through DM. There are many ways for you to reach us. So hopefully this was helpful for you. If you do have any questions regarding, having similar symptoms to this client, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help you. So hopefully this was helpful for some of you, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.